All right, we're starting off talking about supply and demand, and we'll start off with just talking about demand in this video. Okay, so but before we do that, let's talk about the assumptions. So the assumptions are the assumptions for the supply and demand model that we're going to look at right now. Is assumptions is we've got a perfectly competitive market. And so let's talk about what that means real quick. So first of all, we can kind of guess from just reading the name. Perfectly, well, this is going to be perfect. This is going to be the standard that other markets are compared to when we analyze markets. And competitive, well, lots of competition. So you can imagine lots of firms there. So perfectly competitive market is made up of needs three assumptions. So we got many buyers and sellers. So that makes a competitive market. So lots of buyers, lots of sellers, and then you are competitive. Second one is we need all firms selling identical products. Okay, so the products are all the same, and therefore they're competing against each other directly. Yeah, and the final one is in the long run we need no barriers to new firms, but we don't actually need that right now. Entering, and also to old firms exiting. Okay, so anyways, you get the idea. So this simple supply and demand model we're looking at actually may not apply to all situations, but that would be for further studies if you're going to go take a micro class. For our purposes in this class, we can use this for now. Okay, so we're going to get on with demand. So for demand, we're going to look at what consumers are willing and able to buy. Okay, so this is the idea we have. So first we need to start with defining a word. So let's define this word, quantity demanded, which in notes I will use a shorthand of just call it Q and then a subscript D. And so quantity demanded is the following. It's amount of a good or service that consumers are willing and able to purchase at a given price. And so at a given price. Okay, so it's a specific point. That's a key thing to keep in mind. The quantity demanded is a specific point. So at some certain price, oops, sorry about that. At some certain price, then the consumers are willing and able to buy a certain amount. Okay, so this is called the quantity demanded. So it's demand is going to refer to the whole demand at all the different prices, and then quantity demanded just refers to a specific point. So let's go ahead and make a table, something called a demand schedule. So this is called a demand schedule. Okay, and let's go ahead and make a demand schedule. So a demand schedule has two elements. On one side we have prices. On the other side we have quantity demanded, how much quantity they demand. So let's suppose we have a demand schedule for ice cream. And to imagine this ice cream, it's like a ice cream cone. So just kind of a standard ice cream cone. So if it's $1, well, the market will want to buy 100 every day. And if it's $2, they would only want to buy 80. And if it's $3, they only want to buy 60. And $4, they only want to buy 40. And finally, for $5, they only want to buy 20. So we get the idea. So that's called a demand schedule. And then we can go ahead and translate this. We can take this and we translate it into our demand curve. So our demand curve is going to be like this. So let me go ahead and draw the axes real quick. So something kind of funny about the demand curve is when we graph it, we reverse it. So when we do our demand schedule, we're thinking, well, the certain price, it leads us to a certain quantity. But when we graph it, we put the Q on the x-axis, and we end up putting P up here. Okay, so we can just take our points and put them on here. Let me go ahead and label my graph real quick. Okay, so we got $1, $2, $3, $4, $5, and then here we got 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. Okay, and it's a little rough. That's okay. Okay, so we get the idea. So we can just bring our points over. I'm just going to translate a few of them. I'm not going to put them all in here. So we bring our points over and we'll go, okay, $1, then we're going to buy 100, and then maybe we'll take the middle one. $3, we're going to buy $3, we're going to buy 60, for example, and then finally for $5, we're only going to buy 20, and so we connect our points. In this case, it doesn't always, it's not always going to be, but in this particular example I gave you, it's a straight line. So this straight line connecting all these points, and you can see the other points would also be on there. The 4 and the 2 would also be on there. This is called our demand curve. And so it shows at every different price how much the consumers would want to buy. So the first question we can ask ourselves about this is, what happens if the price is to change? Okay, so what's going to happen if the price of the product, for example, increases? So, you know, if we increase our price, then obviously, as this shows, and we could have probably figured out even before, well, we raise a higher price, well, people want to buy less, right? Do you want to pay a lot of money for your ice cream? Probably not. So people are going to buy less. And if we lower the price, sure, people are going to buy more. And we can see that along our curve at the price of 5, way up here, at our price of 5 up here, we got people wanting to buy very little, and when we go down to a price of 1, way down here, people want to buy a lot. Okay, so we can kind of see that. And this has a name, so we can go ahead and write this out. This is called the law of demand. Okay, law of demand, and that's all else constant. So all else constant. So all else constant requirement, otherwise known as a ceteris paribus, which means, I believe, means all else equal. And so this is the idea that holding everything else constant, we expect that if you raise a price, then our quantity demand will go down. They want to buy less. And if we lower the price, our quantity demand will go up. People want to buy more. Okay. And notice we're using quantity demand and not over here we're using the quantity demanded, and we're not using the word demand because, again, demand refers to the whole curve, where quantity demand just refers to the exact point, exactly how much they want at this point. Now, this goes a little beyond the scope of this course, but we can quickly ask ourselves, well, why? Why do we see this? Why do we have the quantity demand? And so there's two factors. Some of you are probably thinking, well, isn't it obvious? Of course, when it's cheaper, we want to buy more. And of course, when it's more expensive, we want to buy less. But actually, maybe it's not so obvious to economists, at least. So we have to think about it. So, well, we think about two things. One is substitution effect, right? Substitution. The substitution effect is such that when the price goes up, if everything else is constant, I mean the price of everything else is constant, they're going to switch to buying other things. Okay, so this price is relatively expensive, so it becomes more expensive. So relative to other goods, so you switch. Right, so we switch. So we switch to those. So the price of a movie ticket goes up, and so some people decide, I'm not going to go to a movie anymore. Instead, we'll go out to dinner, or instead we'll stay home and we'll subscribe to another streaming service or something like that. So you get the idea. There's another one, and again, this is a little beyond the scope of this course, but I just wanted to add this for your interest. There's another one called the income effect. And the income effect, the substitution effect is kind of what you would think. Like something gets more expensive, we're going to go buy something else. So apples become more expensive. When I go to the store, I don't buy apples, but I probably buy some other kind of fruit. The income effect is a little different. It can be really small sometimes, but income effect is basically when the good becomes more expensive, it affects your purchasing power, right? So this is the increase in the price, or the change in the price affects your purchasing power. And so in the case of this good, if it behaves normally, then when it becomes more expensive, then your total money, if it's the same, will not go as far, and so you buy a little bit less of all the normal things, including this good. Right? So there's two things generally moving the same in the same way. There's a few exceptions, but we'll leave those for another course.